No. 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 Yeah, that's what I thought. Even Conquest isn't... Well, folks, I gotta be honest. This isn't the only fake out this episode pulls, and god damn it, did the other fake out get me good. This episode of Invincible was nothing short of an absolute delight from start to finish. I said that episode 2 of this season was my favorite thus far, but honestly, episode 6 might be my new favorite. We got character development, we got action, we got some peak voice acting, and some genuinely tender character moments to remind us what this war is all about. Despite all the crazy action and revelations this episode, I would honestly describe this episode as like kinda cozy. But before we get to this S tier of an episode, spoiler warning for Invincible Season 4. If you haven't watched this episode or this season or the show, go watch it and then come back. You do not want to have this one ruined for you. And here's a quick reminder to check out the Patreon. There it is, just $5 a month to see my videos early and, you know, completely ad-free. But that is enough self-promotion, and that is enough spoiler warnings. Let us get right into this incredible episode of... Instead of going through this episode in the order that the events are presented to us, we're actually gonna do things a little bit differently this time. We'll go through the major plot lines in their own chronological order, starting, of course, with Mark's lengthy recovery out in deep space. Nolan and Oliver are all but stranded waiting for Mark to recover from his most brutal injuries yet. And I actually remember this happening when I watched a whole bunch of videos about the comics after season 1, because, you know, I wanted more Invincible. I remembered Mark being seriously injured and stranded and stuck on a planet with Oliver and Nolan looking after him, but I didn't remember that it was in fact Conquest who put Mark in this state. Oliver has had plenty of moments that have given us insight into his character and like what's going through his head, but this episode gives us our deepest look yet. And it all starts with Oliver's reaction to Nolan giving Conquest a proper burial. Oliver thinks that it's total bullshit that his father is giving Conquest a proper burial since he was an absolute monster and nearly killed his brother. And he is not tolerating his father's reasoning of Conquest was a true devotee to his empire. Oliver even drops a harsh truth in the form of,
"You didn't see what he did to Earth. People at home hate him almost as much as they hate you."
Yeesh, that one probably cuts pretty deep for Nolan. I mean, you know, he more than deserves it after all he's done and all that. But it's clear Oliver's perception of his father has drastically changed since season 3. But for the moment, the two are stranded together. It'd be too risky to move Mark in his current state when they're so deep into enemy territory. So the two get to work and they find this species of like giant bug shrimp to hunt for food. Doesn't look exactly appetizing.
Yeah, I'm never eating that.
Can't exactly blame you for that one, Oliver. Nolan does his best to set up a camp for the three, and it's Oliver's job to feed Mark, I don't know what that stuff is, but it doesn't look tasty. Despite this planet being kind of desolate and like uninteresting for the most part, these shots of the Graysons camp contrasted against these like giant, sharp, rocky mountains is very beautiful. The backgrounds and sets have really been on point this season. I really gotta hand it to the artists. Nolan tries to get Oliver to eat, but he simply refuses. And honestly, I can kind of relate to Oliver in this moment. A little bit anyway. When I had my fair share of moody teen moments, I wouldn't eat either, just to kind of piss off my parents. But with all this time on their hands, Nolan forces Oliver to do some training with him. Oliver isn't a bad fighter or anything, but it's clear he's not fully ready to tackle other Viltrumites in one-on-one combat. And this is probably a good way for Oliver to take his frustrations out on Nolan. Quite literally. And I'm quite confident that Nolan also knows this. When Nolan suggests that they move over to some mountains for some more training, Oliver pushes him while he has his back turned. Nolan questions if Oliver feels better after doing that, which is what made me think he knew Oliver needed to get his frustrations out. And Mark was bang on the money last episode when he said that he was unsure about the exact root cause of Oliver's anger toward his father. It turns out it wasn't just because Nolan didn't come to see Oliver, but because Oliver was upstairs at home when Nolan came to talk to Debbie. And Oliver heard everything, including the part where Nolan said he didn't love Andressa. Yeah. that would make me pretty angry too. This poor kid, man, he has been through so much in his short, strange life. Both his parents are forced to abandon him, his brother gets understandably controlling after he, murders the Mauler twins, and his bro and his mom tell him that his costume choice is inappropriate. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. It's no wonder he's pissed off and angry and frustrated all the time. Regardless, Oliver questions his father if he was a mistake too, like how Nolan said Andressa was a mistake. And Oliver keeps yelling about how all of Nolan's actions indicated to him that he doesn't care about him and that he didn't even want to see him. Despite all of Nolan's terrible actions in the past and all of the horror he has wrought, this moment here is pivotal in any character's redemption arc. Nolan admits that trying to be a better person, be a better father, and make better choices is way harder than he thought. The moment of acknowledgement that redemption will be a long and difficult journey is the next major stepping stone in any character's redemption. Back in the Viltrumite prison, Alan accepted and lifted Nolan up, and typically that bit of initial hope a character gets kinda makes them a little comfortable. They start to think that as long as they do better, it'll all just work out from here. But that isn't the case. Just because Nolan was saying he's gonna be different doesn't mean he's actually different. I pointed this out last episode during the Venture's journey through space, and how Nolan's ego and arrogance are still very much his dominant traits. But now after all that's happened, with Mark half dead and being stranded with Oliver, the child he has failed in every way imaginable, it's time for the next major wake-up call of Nolan's redemption. And that wake-up call is very obvious. He can't continue his redemption by simply saying and doing his own definition of better. That isn't enough. He has to consider and oblige himself to what the people he's wronged define as better. TLDR, it's not up to him what doing better means. And Nolan is right about one thing. It's not easy. Oliver's anger seems to be lowered at his father's acknowledgement of this, but it's clear he's still really upset, saying that Nolan is, quote, too late to make things better as he flies off. Later that night, Nolan tries to get Oliver to eat again when he gives him what he's determined as the best part of those bug shrimp things. And despite how it looks, Oliver actually ended up liking it. Oliver asks if there's any more, and Nolan happily gives him his own portion. This is a baby step, a real baby step. And that very much is clear that as soon as Nolan tries to talk about how Oliver was always a picky eater back on Thraxa, and about his mother, Oliver quickly shuts him down and tells him not to talk about her. So yeah, baby step. Some more time passes and Mark isn't looking too good. Nolan thinks it's due to a lack of nutrition, so the two are gonna have to find something more nutrient dense as soon as possible. The two find a nest with a whole bunch of eggs in them, and unsurprisingly, there's a mother very close by. Despite the uneasy tension between these two right now, they work very well together to take down this creature. And it seems like the Graysons have something of a tendency to forget about creatures' tails. But before Nolan can kill it, Oliver stops him. Oliver points out how they know nothing about her, if she's smart, if she isn't smart, and how she was just protecting her eggs. And Oliver also points out how she'll never be able to lay any more if they kill her. I interpret this moment in two different ways. On one hand, Oliver is showing empathy and is trying to communicate to his father that he'd seriously appreciate it if he'd showed some empathy too. And on the other hand, I also interpret this as Oliver trying to get his father to listen to those around him instead of assuming he knows what they want. The best way to make up for your mistakes is by letting people tell you how to do that and what they want. Because it's not about you or what you're willing to do. It's about the people you've wronged who are giving you a chance to make up for your mistakes. Besides, Oliver is also displaying his intelligence to his father in this moment. If they kill her and end up needing more eggs, well, they're kind of screwed, aren't they? Nolan probably didn't think of that, and acknowledges Oliver is 100% correct in this situation. While it's a small moment overall, we're being shown that Nolan is doing his best to try and listen now. Some more time has passed, and goddamn, Mark, how long have you been out? This man is turning into a proper Viltrumite with all that facial hair. At least he's not all pale and deathly looking anymore. It's Oliver's turn to cook dinner tonight, and Nolan quickly points out how he's fully aware that they've been eating the same thing for so long now. But it turns out Oliver actually quite likes the stuff. But with the conversation starter out of the way, Oliver is upfront with his father and questions why Nolan even had him if Andressa was a mistake and meant nothing to him. It becomes apparent that Nolan used all of this time spent with Oliver to find the right words to say what he always should have from the very start. That he was being selfish and stupid when he said that to Debbie because he, quote, didn't want to hurt her any more than he already had. And while I'm sure that's true to some degree, it was very clear that Nolan missed her and desperately wanted her back. So he said whatever he thought might push him in that direction. But now he realizes that he shouldn't have said that at all, and that he didn't mean any of it. He tells Oliver that he was anything but a mistake, and that he himself had failed in every possible way a father could. Nolan even acknowledges that he might not be able to ever fix things with him, and honestly, I could not have written this scene better if I tried. Alan might have been the kind soul who didn't give up on Nolan and helped show him another path, but he had no real history with Nolan. Oliver, on the other hand, has plenty of it. And all episode we've watched as Nolan makes genuine efforts to do better and realize that he has to do what Oliver defines as better. Set up, conflict, revelation, resolution, and now for the payoff. Hit the montage of Oliver accepting his father's efforts and the ensuing emotional bonding. The montage even has the classic father-son fishing. Or whale hunting, I guess. As the two are talking about the war and readying their seafood, they hear Mark mumbling to himself in the tent. He's not awake, but he is dreaming. Nolan thinks it'll only be a couple more days before Mark is fully healed and ready to go again. Oliver seems upset that there's still a few days left to wait, but as Nolan tries to console him about the long wait, he actually misunderstands Oliver's distress. I, however, saw this one coming from a mile away. Everything from Oliver liking the food, to getting to make a real effort to make peace with his father, and even bonding with him, Oliver says that he's going to miss this place. But in reality, it's the quality time with his father that he's going to miss. A couple days later, another successful training session is completed between father and son. Nolan expresses pride for Oliver's progress and hopes that they can end the war as soon as possible so his sons can go home. But Oliver admits to his father that Earth never really felt like home. After all, he's way different from everyone else, even Mark. Especially considering that, lobsters make him feel fizzy. I'll just let that sink in for a moment. But when the two get back to camp, Mark is missing and they frantically look for him. Turns out he found his way to Conquest's grave, and in the moment, Mark thinks that one of them had died. But luckily, before he can go into an all-out panic, Oliver and Nolan find him and tell him who the grave is really for. Oliver points out how Mark grew a beard, and Mark notices that even Oliver has a little bit of hair poking out from his chin. It should be pretty obvious that this little interaction represents how the two of them have grown and noticed each other growing and maturing. Nolan is quick to point out how it's been 2 entire months and that the war isn't over yet. So Mark straps on his game face and the three saddle up to get ready to ride. Or fly, I guess. Before we cut over to Telescria, which I thought was pronounced Telestria with a T, why don't we take a quick look at what our other friends were doing all this time? Thankfully, that Viltrumite cruiser didn't go back to planet Viltrum, and instead went to this ice planet from the thumbnail, which I totally didn't think was Earth. Just to make sure it's safe, Zoe's suit compartment thing makes some binoculars for Alan to look outside when they arrive. Oh, my bad. He needs, unioculars? Alan's recurring gag when he questions how people can deal with seeing with 2 eyes is like the polar opposite of how the doctor questions how humans can live with only 1 heart, and I absolutely love it. The two make a mad dash for it, but Zoe's suit can only move so fast. So with a little boost and time stall from Alan, Zoe gets to safety. But she's not the abandoning type, and it sure is lucky that Space Racer was there with his amazing gun. Some time passes after the battle, and the two make it back to Telescria. I'm writing that one in all caps so I don't mispronounce it and piss people off. General Telia, who, yes, we'll get back to, just bear with me for a little longer, greets Alan with joy when the two return. The moment is so sweet, Zoe even pulls an Alan and gets in on the hug as well, which is so adorable. I love that Alan and Zoe have become actual friends and not just, allies. No one makes friends like Alan the alien. But speaking of allies... Yep, he's back, folks. And so is that montage from earlier, where we see the Coalition making serious gains against the Viltrumites. Nolan put it perfectly earlier in the episode when he said, there's only so many Viltrumites to go around. And it helps that some of the planets that were freed from the Viltrum Empire have joined the fight on the side of the Coalition.
How?
Man said how. Also, it turns out that skull that Thrag keeps around all the time is in fact the skull of Emperor Argol, which is a little creepy, just a little bit. Kind of giving me like Kylo Ren having Vader's helmet type vibes, but a lot less cringe. Also, I've seen a lot of people complaining about Thrag's voice, so this guy here made it comic accurate for you. Okay, in all seriousness, Lee Pace was the perfect choice for Thrag, and no one can convince me otherwise. But Thrag is getting desperate, and he plans a direct attack on Telescria, and it's here where that second fake out comes into play. In the last video, I made what I'd like to think was quite the strong case that General Telia was the traitor, but nope. Turns out it was this data log dude who has digital access to basically the entire coalition. And the bastard lowers Telescria's defense grid, allowing Thrag's capital ship to enter the planet's orbit and wreak absolute havoc. And we finally get to see Thetis in action. See, I thought the dude might get his ass handed to him a little bit, you know, that he might have gone soft after all these years. But no, dude is a powerhouse and barely struggles at all to keep up with the other Viltrumites. If anything, they're the ones struggling to keep up with him. Unfortunately though, Zoe can't really keep up too well. And just as Anissa goes for the kill, Mark and his messed up family arrive on the scene to kick some ass. General Telia is begging for air support as that Viltrumite cruiser continues wreaking havoc. And Mark overhears this and is like, air support? Pfft, I got you. He takes Oliver and the two split the ship clean in half as Thrag nearly loses Argal's skull. At his word, he and the other Viltrumites retreat. Thrag knows full well in this moment that their chances of survival are too low to risk. Look, say whatever you want about him losing aura or whatever, but this retreat was the smartest option he had in this moment. He prioritized the survival of his race, which has very limited numbers, even more so now after the coalition has probably offed quite a few Viltrumites, and he preserves the stability of the war as best he can. If Thrag died here, or even if just a couple of his Viltrumites died, it would be a way bigger setback than he could afford. But just as things seem to be calming down, the giant spaceship Mark tore in half starts falling to the ground. So of course, we get an awesome sequence of the whole gang working together to throw that thing back into space with the main Invincible theme playing over it. Favorite sequence in this entire episode, by the way. Not just because it's epic and very cinematic, but mainly because as soon as Mark screams to everyone to keep going, you know, to try and motivate the troops, if you will, it immediately cuts over to Thetis. Mark and Thetis barely know each other, but consider this. Mark showed up with his family, kicked the living shit out of the Viltrumites, destroyed Thrag's ship, and then rallied everyone together to keep said ship from crushing the city below. That is the first in-person impression Thetis has of Mark. And I think it's possible that they cut directly from Mark to Thetis to sort of subtly convey that Thetis trusts Mark and will follow his lead. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but Mark really felt like the leader in this scene, as opposed to Thetis. But as they're getting cleaned up, Alan expresses his anger and distress about how horrible this attack was, and how things like this aren't supposed to happen on Telescria. Thetis tells him that it's only a minor setback, and that he needs to consider the war as a whole, and not just the one battle. Not to mention, this shows just how desperate Thrag and the Viltrumites are at this point. Alan didn't really like that advice, but Thetis is 100% correct. Yeah, Telescria got hit hard, and a lot of people died. It really utterly sucks, but it is just one battle. It's not the end of the war, and it's far from the worst they've suffered through. Oh, and they find the mole, and his partner shoots him in the head. And before he can shoot him in the head again, he tells everyone that Thrag is rallying all the remaining Viltrumites back on Viltrum. And Thetis makes up a very bold plan. If they strike Thrag down before his forces can rally on Viltrum, the war will essentially be over. That's right, Thetis wants him and all their other strongest allies to go to the planet Viltrum. And we'll have to wait until next episode to see what everyone thinks about this plan. But there you have it, my friends. Invincible Season 4, Episode 6. Holy moly, this was one turning point of an episode. It's also one of the best time skip episodes I've seen in a show in a really long time. The main character having to recover from basically being half dead is a great way to do a time skip. Not only can you condense it down extremely well in such a simple setting, but it lets the supporting characters get some time in the spotlight. And this episode was very much Oliver and Nolan's episode. All of the scenes of those two on that planet were unironically more enjoyable for me than the big battle at the end. Not that I didn't enjoy the big battle or anything, it was totally kick-ass. But I'm the type of viewer who just gets more out of emotional interactions and emotional progress between characters than I do the action. The action was freaking amazing though. A lot of the budget definitely went into this episode. They really nailed the sheer scale of this battle and made it feel big and grandiose. especially with the shots of Thrag's ship raining down hellfire on Telescria. Also, the whole post-credit scene with Conquest's grave really just solidifies how they're playing into the community memes at this point. But this whole episode is the part of the journey where our heroes are rising after being brought low for so long. And now they're going to try to reach even higher, fully recognizing the fact that some of them might fall forever as they try to reach their ultimate goal. One thing's for sure, with season 5 already confirmed, I am very curious to see what the final 2 episodes of season 4 will give us and what kind of cliffhanger they're gonna leave us on. But what do you think? Do you think it's all just gonna work out and they're gonna kick Thrag's ass, or do you think most of them are going to die? Do you reckon we'll get a whole other season fully fleshing out the Viltrumite War, or do you think this major conflict will be wrapped up in only 2 more episodes? All you comic readers, shut your mouth and let us show enjoyers make our predictions in peace, alright? I don't know what's gonna happen, but please be sure to let me know what you think might happen in the comments. And of course, if you've been enjoying my coverage of Invincible Season 4 so far and you're looking forward to more of it, please be sure to hit the like and sub button. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, if you really like the way I do things and you want to show me a little bit of extra support and help me make these videos, please consider becoming a channel member or check out the Patreon. Not only do you get access to a whole bunch of exclusive rewards, but you also directly support me in the process and help keep this channel alive. But that is going to do it for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and yeah,